Caitlin Clark watched the best stretch of the game from the bench. Not hurt, in foul trouble. She picked up her 5th foul and sat. And while she sat, her team made its best run of the night and tied it. Without her. She came back for the final minutes. They couldn't hold it. Then her coach praised that group at the podium, the group that didn't have her in it. And look at Clark's own line that night. 26 points, 7 assists, and just 1 shot attempt in the entire 4th quarter. A 5th foul put her on the bench for about a 5-minute stretch, right in the window where the team found its rhythm, and the comeback she's usually the engine of came together without her. Now the whole internet wants to talk about the coach, whether Stephanie White benched her star on purpose, whether there's a feud. And I want to be careful here, because Caitlin Clark already answered that question, and her answer is the reason you're looking at the wrong person. The person who built this didn't coach a single second of that game. Her name is Kelly Krauskopf. She runs the entire Indiana Fever from 2 floors above the bench, and she's been sitting up there, out of frame, the whole time. Before we climb those stairs, though, look at who's at the bottom of them. Make no mistake about who Caitlin Clark is right now. 5 days before all this, she carved up Connecticut for 25 points, 5 threes, and 5 assists. The 10th time in her career she's hit that line. That passed Sabrina Ionescu for the 2nd most such games in league history, behind only Diana Taurasi. She is not the problem here. She's playing some of the best basketball of her life. The team around her is the variable that keeps breaking. That same week was supposed to be a celebration. The league named her Eastern Conference Player of the Week. The very night she got benched was the debut of her first signature shoe, the Caitlin One, a night built to honor everything she's done for this sport. She dropped 26 in her own shoes, and the picture that survived the night is her on the bench, watching, while the team found its rhythm without her. Then it got worse. 2 nights later, the same roster walked into Atlanta and surrendered 113 points, a franchise record for Atlanta. The most that organization had ever hung on anyone, and they hung it on Indiana. Ryan Howard went for 24, Alicia Gray for 22, and a sold-out building watched the Fever's season slip to 9-7. Second loss to the same team in 3 days. So when the internet went looking for someone to blame, it grabbed the easiest target on camera. The coach, sabotage, freeze out, iced her out. 40,000 views on a single video calling it a betrayal by Stephanie White. Here's the problem with all of it. Clark doesn't agree. The night before that Atlanta blowout, Clark sat down with ESPN and was asked, point blank, about her relationship with Stephanie White. She didn't dodge. She said, "I love Coach Steph. There's not a better person to do that. Somebody I'll ride with for life." She called the takes about their sideline argument blatantly wrong. She defended her coach to a national audience while the internet was busy lighting that coach on fire on her behalf. So follow the logic. If the victim is telling you it isn't the coach, and she's telling you that loudly on camera unprompted, then this runs deeper than a coaching grudge. Somebody built a roster and a staff where the best version of a Caitlin Clark team is the one she's sitting out of. And the coach who has to manage that every night didn't hire herself. Now go back to that quote from the bench game because it's the whole thing. After the Thursday loss, White was asked about the 4th quarter, the stretch Clark missed. And here's what she said about the lineup that played without her. "I thought that group really dug in on the defensive end of the floor. Got stops, we rebounded it well, and we moved it on offense. The ball got side to side, we got some higher quality looks, and knocked them down." Read that again, slowly, and picture who's not in it. The franchise player, the face of the league, the reason that building sells out every night. The coach stood at a podium and explained on camera why the team looked better with its star sitting down. Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston covered nearly all of the points Indiana managed in that quarter. Clark covered none of it because she wasn't on the floor to. And the sin there belongs to the roster, not the coach. Stephanie White can only play the players she was handed. So who handed them to her? Kelly Krauskopf is the president of basketball and business operations for the Indiana Fever. Not the general manager, the president, the strategy job. She came back to this franchise in September of 2024, and a few weeks later in November, she made the hire that put Stephanie White on that sideline. The coach taking all the heat right now is Krauskopf's choice. The roster around Clark, the one that keeps finding its offense in the minutes Clark misses. That's Krauskopf's build, run day to day by her front office. And this is the part nobody upstairs wants you to sit with. Every arrow the fans are firing at the coach lands 2 floors below where it should. White is the face at the podium. Krauskopf is the architect who decided what that podium would have to defend. In that same ESPN interview, Clark said something that should have set off alarms in the front office instead of the comment section. She talked about how teams guard her. "I don't think many people get guarded the way I do," she said. "You have to get creative, scheme-wise." She wasn't complaining about it either. In the same breath, she said she's easy to coach, that Steph would say the same, and that maybe at times she's difficult too. That's a player taking responsibility on national television. That's a player carrying a defense built specifically to erase her every single night, and still pointing the blame at herself instead of up the stairs. Think about what that means coming from the player herself. She's telling you she gets hunted harder than anyone in the league, and the job of building a roster that takes that weight off her, that gives her outlets and cover, and a system that fits, belongs to one person. It belongs to the president of basketball operations. It belongs to Krauskopf, and she doesn't run it alone. Krauskopf brought in Amber Cox as general manager to handle the day-to-day. But the titles tell you who owns the blueprint. Cox executes, Krauskopf architects. So when the roster doesn't fit the one player the entire franchise is built to showcase, that points straight at the design. And the designer has a name, a title, and a corner office 2 floors above the bench. Look at what that design actually produced over 3 days. Thursday, at home, a 4-game winning streak ends. And the lasting image is the franchise player on the bench for the best stretch of the night, while the coach praises everyone else. Saturday, in Atlanta, the defense Krauskopf assembled gets carved up for 113. Indiana trailed by 3 at halftime and got outscored by 13 in the third quarter alone. The roster didn't bend, it folded. And here's the cruelest part, what that defense was supposed to be. For weeks, it had been the good news story in Indiana. After a team meeting earlier in the month, the Fever had held 4 of 6 opponents under their scoring averages, 4 of them under 76 points. That was the identity Krauskopf's group was selling all season. We won't outscore everyone, but we'll guard you. Then Atlanta walked in and hung a franchise record on that identity. Twice in 3 days, the same opponent took the one thing this roster was built to do and shredded it. A defense that collapses against the same team twice in a week stops being a bad night and starts being a ceiling. And a roster ceiling gets set in the front office, long before the ball ever goes up. You're allowed to ask how a front office that spent 2 years promising to build around the most important player in the sport ended up with a team whose best stretch of the week happened with her on the bench. That's not a coaching question. That's a construction question. And construction is Krauskopf's literal job title. Now, the history, because it tells you this isn't new for her. Krauskopf has been making basketball decisions in Indiana, on and off, for a quarter century. Her very first player move, back in December of 1999, was to draft a guard named Sandy Brondello and trade her away that same day for a young player named Stephanie White. Sit with that. The first transaction of Krauskopf's career sent out the woman who now coaches Toronto and brought in the woman who now coaches Indiana. 25 years later, she hired that same Stephanie White to lead Caitlin Clark's team. The loop closes on itself, and at no point in that loop does the architect ever stand at a microphone and answer for it. Somebody else always does. She didn't even draft Caitlin Clark. That was Lynn Dunn, the year before. Krauskopf came back to power in the fall of 2024, after Clark had already turned this franchise into the biggest draw the sport has ever had. She inherited the most valuable asset in women's basketball, fully formed, handed to her. All she had to do was build around it. That's the job. That's the whole job. And she knows how to do it. She built Indiana's only championship roster back in 2012 as president and general manager. She spent 6 years inside the Pacers' front office after that. She knows exactly how a contender gets assembled, which is why they just haven't figured it out yet doesn't hold up. This is no rookie executive learning on the job. It's someone who's done it before, watching it not happen now and letting the coach she hired absorb every question. Here's a story that should sound familiar. 1981. The Los Angeles Lakers had a young superstar named Magic Johnson and a coach, Paul Westhead, running a rigid system that didn't fit him. Magic got frustrated, and Magic did something Caitlin Clark would never do. He went public and demanded out. Within 24 hours, the owner, Jerry Buss, fired the coach. Westhead had won a championship the year before. Didn't matter. The star spoke, and the front office moved. And it worked. Pat Riley took over that same team, the one a superstar had just called broken, and they went and won the title. Firing a coach didn't fix that franchise by itself. The lesson is simpler and harder. When a star forces the people upstairs to answer, the people upstairs turn out to be perfectly capable of fixing it. Fast. They just have to be made to. That's the difference, and it's the whole point. Magic Johnson torched his coach to force the people upstairs to act. Caitlin Clark just told the entire country she'd ride with hers for life. One of those stars made the front office answer. The other one is handing the front office cover, and Kelly Krauskopf is counting on it. Because as long as Clark keeps defending Stephanie White, nobody turns the camera up the stairs. The coach takes the 40,000-view videos, the coach takes the sideline clips, and the president who hired the coach and built the roster gets to watch her franchise players sit during the best minutes of the night and say nothing and answer for nothing. Indiana plays again Monday, 8 o'clock at home against Phoenix, the first of 3 straight in their own building, the start of a stretch that's supposed to steady a season that just lost twice in 3 days to the same team. The franchise player will be on the floor, the coach will be on the sideline, and the architect will be exactly where she always is, upstairs, out of frame, watching the team she built ask Caitlin Clark to save it again. So here's the only question that actually matters. When a roster's best basketball keeps showing up in the minutes its franchise player is sitting down, who do you think is responsible for the roster?